everybody, and welcome to Voxel Viewpoint. We're raging in our cage on this episode, talking about the open-world bleakness of Rage 2 and the dark, horrifying world of A Plague Tale: Innocence. We also do a quick check-in on Days Gone and Memento Mori, the D&D campaign that's on Kickstarter. It's May 1st, 2019. I'm Ryan Shepard, and stay tuned after the show for a very special episode of Mutant Bash TV. Hello everybody, welcome to the show. I'm Ryan Shepard, and with me today I've got Derrick.
Hey.
And Leigh.
Hello.
And we're here to talk about, well, a little bit later we're going to talk about a couple of big games that came out, specifically Plague Tale: Innocence and Rage 2. But first we've got a little business to take care of up front here. I just want to do a little check-in on some of the games that we talked about previously and an idea of what games we're currently playing that maybe we'll talk about in future episodes. So, Derrick, first of all, you have a little housekeeping. The last episode you mentioned a Kickstarter that you were helping to promote, and what happened with that?
With that, they just didn't really meet their goal. It was called Memento Mori. It was a Victorian age, kind of steampunkish supplement for Dungeons & Dragons 5th edition. So they kind of canceled it out, went back to the drawing board, and relaunched it as of last night. As soon as we get some more information on that, I can actually read through it, because it's been entirely restructured of what they're offering in different tiers and stuff like that to make it more friendly to everybody. I will get that information out to everybody because there seemed to be quite a bit of interest on it.
Okay, cool. And you've continued to play Days Gone. Has the Oregon wilderness changed at all, or are you still kind of where you were when we talked about it for 2 hours last time?
Yeah, it's still the same bullshit. And I'm going to say, I put in an entire weekend dedicated to trying to finish that game. I wanted to finish the main story. I wasn't too worried about the side stuff, the side missions, kind of getting all the upgrades. I just wanted to finish off the story. Mm-hmm. I put in 2 solid days pretty much doing nothing but playing. And I didn't make it that far in main story from what it seems.
Yeah.
Everything progression-wise towards your main story is locked behind your progression towards the side missions. Okay. So you might do a couple, get some experience toward those or completion bonus towards those, and then you've got to ride around for a little bit. And then the next story mission unlocks. Then you can go through and do that to completion, and then you have nothing again. So then you've got to go find what other one of these sections do I got to do to unlock the next part of the story. It just was total bullshit. You just can't go through and do the main story if that's what you want to do. You have to do the side content to progress in your main story, which is, it kind of dampened my feel on the game because I enjoyed playing it, but once I got hit behind this when I was trying to finish the story, it just kind of put a dampen on the whole mood of it.
Yeah. Oh, that's unfortunate. Leigh, did you play any more of it, or did you kind of phase out once we were done talking about it?
I played a little more of it, but it didn't grab me. I just found it too unfocused to really get on with, and I figured that it was just not worth putting the time into it. It's not bad. It's a little
underwhelming.
It's a little too fat of a game, and it doesn't really warrant it. If that makes sense.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Was the story, Derrick, doing anything for you? Because I know you were trying to get through it. Were you just doing it just to get through it, or was it actually something that was pulling you along?
It started to. At certain points, I was like, oh, cool, the story's getting kind of interesting. I want to know what's happening, and some of the side stuff that you tied into, especially about Nero, was starting to get interesting. And then it just fell back off and got into repetitive, especially with dealing with Boozer. like I won't leave any spoilers or anything, but you finally get to this point, and then all of a sudden it becomes this whole repetitive cycle again of having to take care of this giant man-child.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
And what about Boozer?
What about him?
Yeah. So, thought you were talking about Boozer, not. Never mind. All right. Well, that's unfortunate, but I guess that means we kind of hit on exactly what that game was, even though we hadn't played like a ton of the game, but it doesn't seem like it mixes things up too much as it goes along. Just to kind of talk about some things that I'm working through. I've been playing a game called Fade to Silence, and it's not. I'll just say it right here. It's not a great game, but there's something there that's at least keeping me interested to coming back to it. I'm not quite ready to give my full impressions on it, but I am playing it, and I do intend to go back to it now that I've wrapped up some of the bigger games that were in the way, like Rage and A Plague Tale. And I've also gone back to Monster Hunter World. The announcement of the new expansion sparked my interest, and I restarted a character on the Xbox One, which, if you don't know, that game is on Xbox Game Pass, so you get it for $10 a month. And it's a pretty good game to have on that service. There's a lot to do. So I started up a new character, and I'm running through that. It's a pretty good, like, 20-minute game. Like, you can jump in for like 20, 30 minutes at a time and accomplish something. But then you can also, if you want to spend like an afternoon, you can really dig into it. So that's kind of what I'm using it as, is like a filler game between other games. So, Leigh, is there anything else that you are currently working your way through?
I played a little of what you did, so I played a little of Fate to Silence.
Ah.
Dear God.
Yeah.
I wasn't. I don't think I've given it the same goodwill that you have.
Yeah, I'm giving it some credit. There's, like I said, it's something weird there. I don't know if it's gonna pan out, but I'm still gonna give it a shot.
Yeah, the shoddy whiff of death about it of Troll and I. That sort of level of lackluster everything from graphics that look like it's from the PS2 to. If PS2 could do open world, it would be Fate to Silence, I think. I wasn't a fan of it, but maybe I didn't get as far to have a hook.
PS2 had a bunch of open world games.
I got about an hour in and froze to death for no reason, and then I just threw it to one. I threw as much as you can throw a digital to one side. I threw it to one side.
Yeah.
So maybe I needed.
PS2 had a bunch of open world games.
What's that?
You said if PS2 could do open world, it would be this, but PS2 had a lot of open world games.
Yeah, yeah, but kind of with loading and stuff to get like over bridges and stuff like that. This is kind of, you wonder wherever you go with no cuts, no kind of loading screens and stuff like that. Yeah, but other than that, I've been playing the remaster of Sniper Elite 2.
Okay,
that's a pretty substantial remaster. It looks quite nice now.
Is that just 2, or was it like a package they put out? It's just 2?
No, it's just 2. It's 2 with all of the bonus content that came with it, which was quite a lot in the day.
Okay. Is there what stands out? What stands out with Sniper Elite 2? Anything in particular?
If you remember it, it's kind of it. They've made the graphics pop a hell of a lot more. It's a lot less grey and brown than it used to be. I mean, it's really kind of the graphics have had a real pop to them and kind of makes it a bit more interesting.
I mean, what stands out of specifically Sniper Elite 2 that makes it special compared to the other Sniper Elites? Because I'm not familiar with the series.
With the series, well, there's kind of, it's your typical kind of, obviously it's very sniper based. You can steam through if you like to, but it's kind of, they have the cool X-ray. You must have seen the X-ray thing.
Yeah, I'm familiar
with that. If you could do a good shot and stuff like that, So it's a kind of a satisfying war game in a weird way.
Yeah, I'd say though it's one of my brother's favorite series. He actually just picked it up too, and I've seen some of it. And I don't know. From what I've seen, they're just really good sniper games. So
yeah,
okay, yeah, and yeah, like I said, I've played. I think it was 4 I played a little bit of, and I get it confused with Sniper Ghost Warrior. Yep.
Yeah, the CI games. Oh dear Lord. Yeah.
Which
they're a little bit better than those.
I think it was 3 that just recently came out. Not recently, but maybe a couple years ago. And boy, that game was trying some things, and it did not really nail it at all.
No, they're a tiny team that tries too hard to do not enough.
They were they're just talking some smack about. I'm saying smack. I didn't really look into it, but they were in the news recently with having a spat with the co-developer of the new Lords of the Fallen game. Apparently, they split, and they were blaming the other team for not doing a good enough job, and the other team was like, "That's not the situation," and so there's that out there. So. Take that with what you will.
I do like a nice feud of mediocrity.
Yeah. All right. So, I guess without further ado, let's head into. Let's start with Plague Tale, because I have a feeling we're going to spend a little bit of time on Rage. So, A Plague Tale Innocence came out, and this is a game by a studio called Asobo Studios, and I thought they were a new developer, but actually they've done a whole bunch of stuff, like some licensed stuff, and ironically enough, they did a Ratatouille game, and this is like one of their first, I think it's one of their first like totally original games, and if you're not familiar with it, it's this kind of medieval France. It's definitely alternate history because, in a way, because there's a lot of supernatural stuff going on. But basically, it follows these 2 siblings, Amicia and Hugo, as they try to navigate their way through the French countryside, basically. That's been not only overrun with war between England and France, but also by this plague of like super terrible swarming rats that just consume basically any flesh that stands in their way. And they're also being chased by an Inquisition, which is trying to get a hold of Hugo, the younger brother, who has some sort of illness that is kind of kept under wraps for most of the game, exactly what the illness is, but they're trying to acquire him for some reason. And that's kind of like the central mystery of at least the first probably like half to 2/3 of the game, is like what is so special about Hugo that these people are after him. So you play as Amicia, and she's not too much older than her brother. I'd say she's probably about 13 or 14, and he's probably about 6 or 7. So this is a game that's dealing with, very much dealing with children as the main characters, which you don't see too much in games. And they are leaning heavily into the storytelling in the game. And I think they do a pretty good job with it. If you want to read like a more in-depth review on it, you can check out my review on the website, voxelvoice.com. It's there right now. But I kind of wanted to talk to Leigh about it because he played quite a bit of it too, and feel like what his take is on it and how he liked it. I guess, yeah. I mean, you can, like I said, you can look at my review. I really liked it. I thought it did most things really well. The gameplay is a little stealth heavy and it's a little clunky in spots, but luckily it's not. It relies on it a little bit too much, especially near the end, in my opinion. But it's never. There's really only one way to get through all of the encounters, so it's just a matter of taking the advantages when you have them. So Leigh, what was your takeaway from the game? Did you end up finishing it?
No, I'm literally right at the end. I believe. Okay. I think I'm judging by the amount of pickups I have, because you get a grid of kind of collectibles that you collect for a game, and I've probably got like one slot left. So I'm assuming I've not got much to do before I'm at the end.
Yeah. So without spoiling too much, do you remember what chapter you're on?
I can't remember the number. No.
Okay.
I've been quite a way past the revelation of why it's happening and how it's happening. If we put it like that.
Okay. Have any of the main characters left the scene?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. So yeah,
right.
So I played quite a substantial bit of it.
Okay.
It looks like a relatively. I like the look of the atmosphere when you first see the promotional stuff. I like the look of the atmosphere, and you're going into sort of probably a little bit of gameplay and wandering, but kind of a narrative adventure mostly. And I got into it. I was completely engrossed by it. I think it's a fascinating game.
Yeah,
it has its problems.
They put a lot of money into the visuals. That's for sure. It looks like a bigger budget game than it probably is. And that goes a long way, especially when you're interacting with the characters are interacting, and you're seeing these set pieces, and especially the rats, the way that they look and the way that they form in a circle around you as you're carrying your torch, because they're afraid of the fire. So that's really your only defense against them.
Yeah. The way they do the rats as well, because it's kind of almost like apocalyptic the way they come up. It's almost like fantastical. They burst out of the ground to come and get you when they're trying to get towards you. These rats, and you can kind of look around it and you can see, well, these rats aren't animated. They're just running around with tails hanging out.
Yeah.
But there's something about the way they just kind of go around like they're on a wind up, like a clockwork. But you don't care, because there's something unsettling about it, because they've got piercing eyes and they kind of lit up by, I assume, the light, and it's very creepy. It's incredibly creepy.
Yeah, it's like
it's very.
Like you said, each individual rat isn't even really animated with legs, but there's so many of them, and they pile up on each other so much. It's like they almost look like a bunch of Tic Tacs.
Yeah.
or rice spilling out of the walls and stuff like that. It reminded me a lot of water or sand, flowing out of holes in the ground and holes in the wall and stuff like that. And their eyes glow, and because they're afraid of the light, you never really get a good close-up look at them, because you're either holding a torch and they're forming a ring around you and they're constantly in the periphery of the darkness, or they're just swarming you in some sort of cutscene where you die. So you never really get a close-up look at a single one of the rats. So they put out a couple of videos about their what they call rat tech in the game and how they do it. I haven't watched them, but if you're interested in how games are made and stuff like that, you might want to take a look at that and see how they made this work. Yeah, the rats are horrifying. Right from the start, and they're pretty terrifying right up throughout. They don't really lose their edge. They do a good job of creating new ways to make them scary, or just interesting. Like they never quite. It's never like, oh man, the rats again or anything like that. It's like, oh shit, the rats are back.
Well, they're not. Yeah, they're not constantly there, are they? They're not. It's kind of
No.
they know when to drop them in and take them out. You've got several sort of antagonists or groups of antagonists that come in and out of the games, and they know when to drop. Because obviously, kind of the rat thing is also a puzzle element to the game, isn't it? Trying to work your way through it by using you get a slingshot that you could kind of drop kind of flaming chandeliers and to make them split, and you can make your way through the thing and stuff like that. It does
make paths through.
Yeah, there's a surprising amount of combat in there. Well, I thought it doesn't work perfectly.
I guess you'd call it combat. I guess when there are certain points where they're kind of like, I guess you'd call it the boss fights, where you have to deal with usually a single enemy where you're taking them down. But no, I guess near the end there are points where there's dudes running at you, and you have to take them down.
Or without wishing to spoil too much, the camp, when you're in the camp looking for Hugo.
Yeah,
with one of your friends and that sort of thing. You can choose to do it both ways. It gives you the option to do it both, which I didn't expect for such a narrative adventure.
Yeah, there are definitely points where you have to kill, and there are a lot of open-ended areas where you kind of you can or you can't, and usually it's a little bit more difficult if you choose not to, because you have to worry about bodies being spotted and stuff like that. But and I mentioned it in the review, I always felt like I always wanted to take the non-kill route. Not because there's a meter or it's going to affect the end of my game or anything like that, because there's none of that. The story is what it is, no matter what you do. There's no like renegade or Paragon meter like in Mass Effect or something like that. No. But because of the character development, because like Amicia is like such a well-developed character, and is, no pun intended, innocent, you don't. I never felt like it was right for me to just go on a murder spree with her slingshot, right?
She has regrets when she first has to kill somebody, so then for you to continue to do that,
right?
You try and role play it, don't you, in a weird way? Yeah. Even though it doesn't require you to. Yeah,
and those are my favorite types of morality meters. I think we've gotten past the point where, we have a visible morality meter, and that really works out. I think like The Witcher 3 did a very good job of having like dotting out these kind of choices you have to make, but it isn't clear that you're actually making these choices that are going to affect the final outcome. And that's the kind of stuff I like. I like it, and honestly, it kind of comes down to literally affecting how I play the game. So like Dishonored, for instance, I don't like those games because I know if I kill too many people, I'm going to get like a quote-unquote bad ending. And
you're going to get played,
I don't enjoy the stealth in those games. I just don't like it. So I just bounced off of them because I was like, well, I'm just going to get a bad ending, and that's not the ending I want, but they're making me do this because I don't like playing the game that they want me to play in order to get the good ending or whatever.
Ironically, a set of games where you can summon rats to eat people.
Right, yeah. Right. Yeah.
Bizarre.
Yeah, so like I was saying, it's a really well done game from like the scope of the project. Like they I feel like they knew what their limitations were and their strengths, and they leaned into them. versus like when we were talking about earlier with like Fade to Silence or the like they're kind of like reaching beyond their bounds, but they seem Asobo with A Plague Tale seems to have narrowed in at exactly what they can do, and they set out to do it, and I think they pulled it off. The story is like I said, it concludes very well, and it is. Don't go in expecting this to be like a historically accurate representation of like the bubonic plague or something like that, because that's not what this is. They're using the imagery of something like that, but they are taking liberties with the source material and kind of running off in their own direction with it. And they lean into it. It isn't like they keep waffling back and forth. They right from the start they tell you, they make it clear that this isn't your great grandfather's plague. Derrick, I know you have not played it. Do you have any questions, any concerns that you want to raise before we move on to something that we can all talk about?
I guess as far as like the story goes, do they keep it going along pretty well without it like kind of getting dry in spots?
Oh yeah. It's a very it never lets up, basically.
Nice.
Like with Leigh was saying, where they keep like it has a very good balance of like, okay, now you're dealing with these human characters that you have to fight, and then they throw the rats back in, like almost at a point where you'd be like, oh my god, I totally forgot about these rats. It actually reminds me a lot of the Flood from Halo.
Gotcha.
And I know people are back and forth on their love of the Flood, but it's kind of that in terms of pacing, where you'll have your missions where you'll just be fighting the Covenant, and then they'll put the Flood back in at a certain point, and you'll have some Flood missions and back and forth like that.
Nice.
And even like the behavior of the rats reminds me a little bit of that, where they just kind of swarm around, and it's kind of like a feeling of being overwhelmed in that sense. It's on PC, PS4, and Xbox One. I guess it's $50 on console and $45 on PC for some reason. I don't know why they do pricing changes like that. I was a little, when I first started up, I think me and you both, Leigh, were a little like, is this really worth that high of an asking price? And by the end, I was like, yeah, this is. It's not a super long game. You're looking at probably between 8 to 10 hours if you get all of the collectibles, like 10 hours if you seek out all of the collectibles. A little bit less if you just run through the main story, because it is pretty linear. But the quality of the content, I think, justifies the price tag.
Yeah, I feel like it's something I would probably play through again for the story, to appreciate the story again. It's very well.
Yeah, I think it would be a good, at least in my particular case, it would be a good one where I'm gonna like go back in a couple of years and replay and feel like I'm kind of like starting in fresh, because I'll forget a lot of details and stuff like that.
Yeah.
All right, so that was A Plague Tale: Innocence, and now we're moving on to the showcase here, the big game, the one we've all been waiting for. We did an entire replay episode just to get ready for it. Rage 2. So this is the follow-up to the game that nobody thought was ever going to get a follow-up, Rage, which we talked about on our replay episode just recently. And I think we were kind of mixed on that particular game. I mean, when I say that, Leigh in particular was a little bit higher on it than the rest of us, but we have a new game here and a new approach to the type of game that Rage is, I guess, famous for, even though there's only been one of them. Anyway, this is kind of a weird situation where you have two studios working on the same game, two studios that you wouldn't see normally working together. You've got id, famous for a little game called Doom, and Avalanche, famous for a little game called Just Cause. Kind of working together, but not really sure exactly what the load share was on this one. I'm leaning more toward, after playing it for, I think I probably got almost 20 hours into it, I'm leaning more toward Avalanche was the lead, and id was kind of like the one that gave them, probably like the tips on the shooting and stuff like that. Because it feels, the open world anyway, at least from my perspective, feels very in line with the most recent games from Avalanche, like Just Cause, and we talked about it on the replay cast, Mad Max, which I feel like this takes a lot of cues from. But there's also the shooting aspect of it, which I think is very good and very fun and really well executed. So, Leigh, do you want to start us off with a little bit of story detail, and then we'll get into what we like and dislike about it?
Story is, it's set up, I believe it's 20 or 30 years after the last Rage game.
Mm-hmm.
And you are a group of soldiers called Rangers that are kind of fight. I can't remember the bad guy's name now. You don't see him often. You see him at the beginning, middle, and the end.
That about tracks. The Authority.
Yeah, the Authority. And kind of
the man.
But really, what it is, it's your way to get in. It's kind of a thinly written character because kind of you're set off at the beginning from your team, and then you go off and do your own thing, and you generally visit characters from the previous game, much older. And it's kind of, it gives you a little bit of story and context, but really it's take on the ruffians of the land and kind of occasionally pick up on some story. Really, there's not really much story to it. Let's be honest.
Yeah.
The story is relatively thin.
Yeah, the story is just more of like an excuse to put you in the world, and let you kind of go crazy. But which is not necessarily terrible. I think that in this particular case, like for one, I haven't completed the story quest yet, but I guess it's pretty short. Like if you were to just mainline through the story, it wouldn't be a very long game. But obviously, you're not supposed to do that. They hope that you're going to spend a little time out in the open world, clearing it out, so to speak. And I'm not sure. So like it's fine for a game to do that. I'm just not sure that the story itself gives you enough reason to think that you're supposed to go out and kind of jerk off for 30 hours or something like that. I wish there was a little bit. What's that?
Well, I did it anyway.
Well, yeah. Yeah, exactly. I mean, I did it anyway, but I feel like that when these story elements, these kind of open-ended story elements in these kinds of games work better is when they kind of tie everything together a little bit better than they do. Like for instance, one of the main quest givers gives you quests to do, like the Mutant Bash TV, like, which is like an arena combat thing, and to do a like a rally race with your race car. And like these are obvious introductions into kind of like side stuff, right? But you like never have to do it again. You know, it's like it's not a very convincing way to get me interested in the arena combat, which I'm never going to be interested in a game anyway. But I think in particular this one was a little bit lackluster. And the same thing with the rally racing. It was just like the driving in this game is okay, but it's not like, oh man, I'm gonna go race some cars, okay, and I'm gonna have a good time doing it.
I quite like the car stuff. I've very recently played Mad Max. And it's incredibly similar driving system.
It's
down to the fact you have the side swipe button.
Yeah, I remember Mad Max's cars having a little bit more weight to them. Like this feels a little bit more arcadey and a little bit more glitchy.
Oh yeah.
Like driving around and even just driving around in the race, like I would clip through things that I thought I shouldn't be clipping through, or like bouncing off walls in the racing didn't feel like it was physically acting the way that it should. And I don't know, I didn't I guess with the case of Mad Max, it was a lot more just plain wide open space, so you weren't really bumping into walls too often.
That's the big difference.
I just don't remember the driving in Mad Max being as kind of loose, I guess I would say.
Well, I think probably the big thing about it is that it's like they've almost ripped the whole system out of Mad Max, just plonked it into Rage. But the whole thing is you don't have that freedom to slide around like you did in Mad Max. It's fine when you're kind of down in the lower parts of the Rage map. When you get towards the top, I don't know if you've got towards the top of the map yet. And it's quite
no, I haven't gone into the final north area.
Yeah, it feels like kind of clunky with certain cars too, because like certain cars handle all right, and there's a lot of spots like sometimes it'll take you where you're like twisting and turning, and if you're trying to go top speed, you're off the map 80% of the time with some of these vehicles, and then some of them it's like, all right, cool, this handles great. So then you find this new vehicle, because the other thing is too, like the vehicles all look absolutely amazing. I want to drive them all. I want to collect them all. But then some of them just handle so bad, it's like, man.
Especially when you get to the top, because it's like dense. It's almost like a dense tropical forest towards the top of the map.
Oh yeah,
very narrow roads, and you're slamming into the thing. You have to kind of you can't pelt through like you did before, and it's a chore to something, especially when you're in your big tank, your kind of your main tank. You're hitting the sides, and it does kind of take the steam off it a little bit. It's kind of, it does show where maybe kind of just ripping it out and putting it into another game maybe hasn't worked out quite well.
Yeah, well, let me give you guys a tip: the Icarus flying vehicle, because that takes it all out of the play. You're not bumping into anything because you're flying above everything, and you go a lot faster, and there's no shooting, there's no racing, you don't have to worry about other cars. You just land at the next bandit hideout, you jump out, and you do your business, and then you get back in and you go to the next one, and you don't have to worry about all the bullshit in between.
Until you don't realize where you go in and you run into the abandoned city and crashes into the side of a skyscraper.
Or if you go in and then come out and it's just not there.
Yeah.
Well, yeah. Then you buy another one for $10.
Or you forget what button you use and you end up jumping off it from about 100 foot up. I don't know why, but I keep holding down X and jumping out.
You can't be responsible for user error, all right? Figure out how to get in and out of your own Icarus.
I do that when I go to turn because I don't want to press circle to turn. I keep wanting to press square just because it's out of habit for most racing games.
Yeah.
And then I'll just go tumbling out and like, oh, man.
Yeah.
Problem is, I got confused because it is an Icarus, and I flew too high, and that was it. I just had to jump.
Well, you can't fly too high. There's a definite ceiling on that game that
Yeah.
you cannot fly too high, and landing that
Yeah.
thing can also be a kind of a silly, wacky kind of experience because it seems like as soon as you get like 10 feet from the ground, it just decides to do whatever the fuck it wants to do, and and landing it can be a bit of a chore. But it does get you around a lot faster than taking the roads and stuff like that. There's also an interesting bug where sometimes when you approach it, it just flings you off into space. Like it's happened. It's happened way too many times for it to just be some sort of random thing. I've just got flung, like just walking up to it. You just walk up to it, and then it like goes into a third person camera, and your body just ragdolls up into the sky, and then falls somewhere. And I don't know why. It just happens, which is kind of a lot of the bugs in this game. They just kind of happen without too much rhyme or reason. I haven't encountered anything that's been like game breaking or anything like that, which is good. So most of the bugs that I've encountered have just been kind of silly.
Yeah,
but,
silly or just like annoying, especially with like if you have the motorcycle, the base one, or the monster truck. If you go off road at all and hit like a rock or something that you should just go over, I get flung all over the place. Like especially in a monster truck. Like,
oh really?
It makes no sense. Like the monster truck, you should be able to hit off road and be good. No, I started like bouncing around left, right, spinning around, and I was like, all right, I'm done with this. Let me get this back here and get my money for it.
Yeah.
Not going back to this one.
I think I tried to bring the monster truck back to add to my collection, but something happened along. Oh no, I do have it. I do have the monster truck, and I found the that traveling vendor truck. I found one just parked in a settlement, so I took that, and I actually ended up having to do it twice because like I was literally like 2 seconds from one of the settlements to claim it, and like some 2 authority tanks drove by in the matter of half a second. I saw these 2 like guiding missile lines locked right on me, and then they shot. Like,
oh man,
they shot me and I just blew up, and it had never happened to me. Like I never came across one of these before. These apparently there are these authority tanks that drive around, and I was just like, it was like this ultimate like, what the fuck was that? Moment where they just like locked onto me, blasted me out of the air, and I had to restart the whole trip back. And it was a long trip. It was a decent ways out from a settlement.
We're not being able to turn it and go flying off the edge like I did with. I finally found the Razor motorcycle, which is like the first version upgrade or whatever of it, and right off the edge, like 2 seconds before town. I was like, I guess the last 10 minutes of driving because I was trying to be so careful with it.
Yeah. Yeah. So basically, the flow of this game, like story aside, you have this map that it's basically full of icons. It's a pretty standard open world formula, and the locations are a bunch of different things. There's like bandit hideouts that you need to go in, kill all the bandits, and you complete that. You get money and reputation for the different kinds of people that you're working for. So there's 3 of them. There's Lusum Hagar, which is actually the person that teaches you about the wing stick in the first game. She's in that first settlement. Marshall, was he in the first game?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes, he was.
Okay.
Yeah.
I don't specifically remember him. What's that?
He also was Dr. Varkid or whatever his name. Varkid?
Cavassier.
The Dr. Varkid. I don't know what his name is, but the guy that rides the kind of weird dwarf thing.
Yeah.
Have you got to him yet? Yeah. I believe he was in the
yeah.
first one as well.
Okay.
Ooh.
Yeah, I wasn't sure if those were actually returning characters. So you're basically gaining a reputation for each of these characters, and by doing so, you're unlocking tiers of upgrades that you can use to like upgrade your character, basically give you more skills, give you like, there's this currency called feltrite, which is this material that comes from asteroids from the sky, and that's one of the main currencies. So you get a upgrade that gives you more of that when you find a deposit of it or something like that.
Cool.
It's pretty basic stuff along those lines. So your wing stick will do more damage if you choose more upgrades from the Mayor Hagar, as it were.
Yeah.
And that's kind of the draw. So you do each settlement type feeds into each character's reputation pool, and like I said, you unlock it through tiers that way. So basically, you spend most of the game just going from these settlements and clearing them out, and which is very similar to, like we were mentioning before, how Mad Max works. In fact, it's almost exactly how Mad Max works. You perform. You go to settlements within each character's territory in that game, and the more things you do, the more reputation you unlock for them, and that unlocks more things that you can do in their region. The structure's a tiny little bit different, but it's really pretty much it's just a slightly tweaked version of that Mad Max formula. And so basically what that leads to is, you're just jumping from location to location, and that in any other game that would be like a death sentence, because that would be the most rote and boring, repetitive thing that you could possibly do in an open world. However, it actually works really well here because the shooting is so fucking good in this game. And like that was one of the big reasons why I was interested in it, because when I started showing gameplay of it, I'm like, oh my god, they just made Doom in an open world, because that's what the gameplay really looked like. Was like they took the Doom 2016 gameplay, first person shooter gameplay, and put it into like a first person open world game. And by and large, that's kind of like what you're getting here. There's definitely a little bit more tweaks to it. You get abilities that kind of give you like superpowers, where you can like jump up in the air and do a slam down into the ground to kill and stun enemies in an AoE attack. You can like force push them off cliffs and cause them to explode into a bunch of pieces. And it's all really satisfying. The arsenal is really good. It's all standard stuff like assault rifles, pistols, shotguns, rocket launchers, and stuff like that. But they all are really great guns. Like the assault rifle is really awesome at taking headshots from like medium range. The shotgun is just devastating close up, and like they have this cool, like the shotgun, it's like this double weapon where the normal shooting is just a normal shotgun blast, but when you aim down the sights, it's like almost like a railgun, where it shoots out a focused blast of energy that pushes enemies back. And then when you're in overdrive, which is like your ult ability, it's like even more insane, because you're just like the radius on the shotgun blast is like 120 degrees in front of you. And
it's a giant spray.
Yeah, you're literally just it's like a laser beam that shoots out straight in front of you, and you're just wiping everybody out in front of you. Um, the rocket launcher has a cool alt fire where it locks on with a bunch of mini rockets, and those seek in and take enemies out, and that's really fun to use.
Yeah.
And they all have tiers of upgrades, so um, there's like 50 different kinds of resources in this game, and like half a dozen upgrade trees, and you keep spending points on those, and they keep unlocking new abilities and more powerful weapons and stuff like that. So that part of the game is like really awesome. And
Yeah,
what I ended
you'll
up
definitely forget about something too.
Yeah.
what's that?
I said you'll definitely forget about some skills too, because like you can upgrade like the base part of it, but then as I found out, you click into that skill, and then you can further tune that skill with another resource, which I was like halfway through my playthrough, and I was like, well, shit, I've got all this to put in, and now it changed the game even more because it just made it that much better.
It doesn't do a great job of exposing all of that stuff to you. You kind of have to go in, if you do it, you have to go into the menu and find all of this stuff. It kind of alludes to it here and there, but it doesn't, like, for all of the tutorialization that this game does, it doesn't do a very good job of tutorializing you through the menus. And yeah, there's like Derrick was saying, you have these abilities, and you can upgrade the base level abilities, and then you can go into the ability further, and each ability has its own upgrade tree. Now, it's not like this huge giant upgrade tree. Usually it's only like 6 or 7 things that you can do, but some of these things are big, like reducing the cooldown time on the ability, which like the force push, which is one that I use quite often because it's really good at ripping the armor off of armored enemies. I want to use that as much as possible, so I put a lot of points into reducing the cooldown time and giving myself a second charge on it. So basically, I can do this force push thing and take down a whole bunch of guys all in one go, without having to wait for it to recharge, which is very useful. And the weapons are the same way too. You have the base level upgrades, but then you have a tree for each one that lets you upgrade them even further. And the vehicles.
And you can swap them out as well, which I quite like. You open up a tier of 1 or 2. You can only have one or the other, but you don't have to buy both.
Right.
You can swap between them. It just opens up, so you can keep changing up the gameplay. You have to swap between them.
Yeah, you have to choose one. You can't have them both active. The rocket launcher, the first one is you can lock on to 3 targets at once instead of 2, or the reload is faster or something like that. So you have to choose between one or the other. But you can't swap.
You don't have to buy them though. Yeah, you don't have to buy them both. You just buy the tier, and then you get to swap between them. Yeah.
So that's good. You can customize your stuff that way. And then there's crafting, which, like Derrick said, that he didn't figure out about the ability upgrading until pretty far into the game. I didn't realize that I was able to craft all sorts of things from your inventory until pretty far into the game. Because I was picking up all of these like parts and like alcohol, and reminded me a lot of friggin' Days Gone, where I was picking up all these random things all over the ground and stuff like that. And I'm like, what am I using these for? Like, it kept saying things that like you can craft, but like I said, it never really told me where to go craft. So I thought it was like an ability I needed to unlock. Like I needed to perform a certain mission for a character, and that was going to unlock the tier for me, the ability to craft, and I just hadn't gotten to it yet until I look into the inventory at one point, and I'm like, oh, there's a craft button right there. I don't have to go and buy these health infusions every time I'm in a town. I can just craft them all right here.
Yeah, because you need like the schematic thing, because then you can even upgrade that by buying more of the schematics.
Yeah, you upgrade the you upgrade it, and then there's the augments that you can do, at the doctor at Wellspring will allow you to. That's where you increase your health and your overdrive and stuff like that, and it's just like it's so much. And like I said, it doesn't do a very good job of like coaching you through all of that.
I'd say while you're talking about the dock too, I'd say that's like very underwhelming because you have these like 3 things that you have to get, and then you can pick one of the 3. But like health wise, the increment of health you get from collecting these 3 is nothing compared to like if you pick the damage, you're getting 5% more damage. But if you pick the health, you're literally getting 5 more health each time.
Yeah. It's very expensive. Those are like the most expensive upgrades in the game, I think. Like each one requires like 3 different materials and a ton of the material, and you don't get a whole lot of them.
I found the shops confusing as well.
The shops
could be confusing. Yeah. Where you buy some things and then you can store the items you buy for upgrades later. Like you can buy things that upgrade your nanomites, which is the system in there. But then you buy for the things that extend your throwables and your consumables. But they apply straight away. I was confused. I thought I was not getting them. I thought I was glitched out because they wasn't going into my inventory. But they go smash straight into your thing and open up straight away. But nothing else does. So that's a very strange way of doing it. I thought I would buy it. It would go into my inventory. I was getting frustrated. And I realised what was happening eventually. But I didn't realise that until about 10 hours in.
Yeah.
It'd be very confusing.
Yeah.
It kind of...
The more I played the game, the more I started feeling like there was a whole lot of just, like throw all of this in and see how it works, and not a lot of communication between, like, shouldn't we have like a clear through line on how all of these things work? And it's just like, no, just put it all in, and each system almost feels like its own separate thing. And even the world itself feels detached from like the combat, right? Because you have these settlements, but there isn't really like this sense of everything interacting with each other in the world, right? You have these little moments where you're driving around and there's like a combat sequence going on, but they're so out of place and just out in the middle of nowhere, and you never know what's going on.
It's funny because if you watch them from far off, because you get this move, which I thought was going to be rubbish, but is brilliant, where they throw grenades at you, you bat them back at them.
Yeah.
You kind of hit them, but they do it to each other, so it's like they're playing cricket with each other. They're just batting these grenades backwards and forwards, and you watch them, it's like they're playing ball games.
I was thinking there was just like, in the middle of nowhere, it's just like a giant circle of them, and that's all they're doing, and I was like, because I was on a mission somewhere. I turned around, I was like, what the fuck's going on behind me? And I'm watching for like 5 minutes, and I'm like, okay. And then you clean them up and get all your little mutant part things, and it's...
Yeah.
Has
anybody unlocked the top spin one? Where it goes straight back to where it came from? Oh, it's so satisfying. It's literally just hitting...
I don't think I went down.
It's just hitting melee, and it goes bop straight back. It's
exactly right back to where it came from. That sounds pretty cool. Yeah, when I initially read that, I was like, I'm never going to fucking use this. But now that I'm playing the game, I'm like, I keep forgetting to go back and unlock it, because I'm like, I fucking love this now, because this seems like it seems like it fits so perfectly into the combat. And I guess that's, again, kind of like a tonal thing that is very different between the combat and the rest of the world, is that like, so a big part of the marketing for this game was like this crazy off the wall, like punk kind of like guys with mohawks and screaming and like almost like a Mad Max, but like extreme Mad Max kind of feel to it. And I don't really feel like that's expressed like anywhere in the game, except for some very, very particular parts. But most of the time, like it's kind of expressed in the wackiness and off the wallness of the combat, like being able to knock grenades back and dodge out of the way of rockets, and just like force pushing somebody and they explode into a million pieces and stuff like that. But I don't feel like the characters in the world that they're building feels like that at all. Like it doesn't feel like the game that they were like almost like advertising.
Do you think that's why? Because it was divisive when it came out. Do you think they may have toned that down in the interim? Because everybody was like, no. No, I think even you said that first trailer was awful.
Yeah,
that bizarre live-action trailer, and everybody went, no.
Yeah, I know. That was weird, and I was worried that it was going to be too far down that path. But instead what it was like not down that path at all. Like the total opposite. And the few times where it does creep up feels very forced and very awkward. And like not owning it at all, like not earning those moments. And I don't know if it was because of the reaction to it, or because there was just a huge like disconnect between what this game actually is and what the marketing was promoting. So that's kind of a hard thing to discern, but regardless, the result is that the game doesn't really match up with, like the crazy. I mean, you look at the box, the crazy yelling guy on the front of the box doesn't exist in the game. Like, yeah, there's some characters that have like will have that pink mohawk and they'll be bad guys, but they aren't acting as off the wall as they appear to be in the lead up information and stuff like that to the game. And that's, like I said, I was of two minds. Like I was worried it was going to go too far, but because it didn't go far enough, I feel the game lacks a huge amount of personality. Like I'm not going to remember a whole lot about this game in a few years, you know what I mean? I'm going to play it and I'm going to, like, I found my groove with it. Like I found out that what I really need to do is just go to these encampments and engage with the really good combat, have fun, but the act of moving between them and following the story isn't really doing it for me at all.
The stories are very simple, and it's just like, without spoiling anything, it's like, here's a plan. Here's what we're going to do to do this plan. This plan is just so out there that,
it's like it's
what it is.
A lot of it is actually a lot of the criticisms we levied against the open world of Days Gone, in that this feels like an old open world game, like built on a like the first era of, or maybe the second era of Ubisoft open world games, where it was just like this big checklist of things to do in this world, and they're kind of loosely tied together. I feel like a lot of it's coming from like the Far Cry formula, especially like with the encampments that you're going to, and you're literally you look on your map, you complete them, there's literally a check mark on the map that says, okay, check, done, move on.
Yeah, I was going to say that too, like on the map too. What I liked about that was that, like, if you completely complete it, it check marks it for you and then grays it out. But then if you like completed part of it but didn't find everything, it'll still kind of like fill it in, but then okay, I still need to go back there because there's something for me to find.
It's still color, isn't it? Yeah.
That was one of the things I really liked. It didn't like completely check it off. Like it filled it in and was like, hey, your main objective's done, but there's still some stuff here that we want you to find, because it does give you that checklist there.
Yeah.
And it's like, you have this many, you have an art crate, you have this many containers.
And the data pads, which are a pain in the ass to find without the sensor.
Yeah.
Or at night when they go green.
Yeah, it's nice.
Let's just not even talk about playing the game at nighttime.
Oh my god. Like if there was ever a game that needed a flashlight more, it's this freaking game. Oh my god. There's so many just like completely dark and you obfuscated sections of this game. It's crazy that they didn't play test this and somebody didn't be like,
Right.
you should really add a flashlight or something.
Yeah, even that Game of Thrones episode was lighter than how dark it is at night.
Hey, listen, I didn't have any problems with
here.
that Game of Thrones episode. I saw everything perfectly clear, which is why I know my TV is perfectly fine to deal with. And I guess what's really weird is that there's no in-game adjustment for brightness, which is like this. That's like
because wasn't the game only 1080p as well? So
that's 2000 level of video game features, right? Like every single game that you start has a brightness check. It's like what difficulty do you want to play on? Is the brightness okay? Adjust the brightness until you can see these two logos or something like that. And for this game not to have it is just really bizarre.
Yeah, it was surprising too that it's only 1080p as well. Like there's no HDR support.
That's not too surprising because they targeted 60 frames per second. So and also the current consoles, they're better than the old versions of those consoles, but they're still not.
No.
They're really not designed to play 4K. They can do it when they spend the time and stuff like that, but they're still really not. Like you can the highest end graphics card can still in a PC can still struggle at putting out 4K at 60 frames per second.
Yeah.
So
I have noticed that it's a.
We're at the end of the generation, so you're gonna start to see compromises like that, just like we did at the end of last generation.
Yeah, it is a little chuggy as well at times. You can a lot chuggier than Doom, which is from the same people 2 years early, 3 years earlier now, which run a lot better than this did when you're in the combat sort of stuff. I do find that the pitches and stuff. Well, you do on the base. Well, I haven't got the base. I've got the S, which is one up from the base. But yeah, it can be a little juggy. It can kind of stutter quite a lot.
I think saying that this is by the same people that brought you Doom 2016 is not telling the whole story. I think this was an Avalanche game that it helped them with. It helped them. Do you think?
Yeah.
Well, I mean, it's if you look at the boot up screen, it literally says the Avalanche open world tech is running the game. So it's their engine that is that the game is running on, which is the same engine that's running Just Cause, and I believe was the same engine that was running Mad Max back in when 2015 when that came out.
Oh, fair enough.
Yeah, I think based on what I've seen and what I've played and stuff like that, it seems like it definitely had their hand in the combat, in the shooting and stuff like that. And the rest of it was probably left up to Avalanche. Which kind of... What's that?
Perhaps I was too busy finishing your Generation Zero to
yeah, I don't know, man. Avalanche, I don't know what the fuck they're doing. Derrick, you played Just Cause 4, and I know you stopped because of the motion blur, but they patched that out. Did you ever go back to it?
I still have it on there. I haven't gone back to it yet. I went back a little bit, and it was definitely a lot better.
Yeah.
Is
there any... Like, what would be driving you to go back to it? Is because you think it's a good game, or?
Yeah, I love the zaniness that Just Cause is, and I think now that I kind of like waited because it had like a good core. Like the gameplay was fun, but like the motion blur took away from it because of the moving around you did. But then they just announced that like DLC is coming, so probably once all the DLC drops, because I had that edition, so I'll get all that. I'll come back and play it once it's a full package, which has happened with each one so far. That's how I played Just Cause 3.
Yeah. Okay, because I know the general reception to Just Cause 3 and 4 was not super positive. It was kind of like, yeah, this is okay, but it's not as, like, I guess groundbreaking as you'd say that Just Cause 2 was, because Just Cause 2 was like this big, kind of like tentpole open world game. And then I felt like they just kind of fell into a little bit of a repetition with the next two games. And then, of course, they Generation Zero, which don't even look at that game. And they had Mad Max, which, you know, the more I played that game, the more I ended up enjoying it. But it was at the expense of seeing its faults, of seeing its kind of like rote formula on the open world way it handled its open world stuff. And I feel like that, like you were saying, Leigh, a lot of that was taken right out of it and put into this game. And that game is 4 years old, so we're kind of like behind the 8 ball on this one. And that's like, I'm not saying it's a bad thing, because I was able to find the fun. I was definitely able to find the fun. I found the loop that got me the most enjoyment out of the game, but it is just a little disappointing to see, you know, a big release, like this big AAA release, Bethesda publishing, you know, the id name on it, whether or not what their involvement is in, who knows, but you know, their name is on it, to just kind of be a little bit disappointing in that aspect. Because I think the World of Rage is pretty cool. Like, I like the idea, and I just wish that they kind of tied it all together a little bit more, where it felt like this was like on par with like Fallout in terms of like world building and stuff like that. But I don't think they did it, because it just all the pieces just feel a little bit too desperate, like a little bit too, like, I was thinking about the Mutant Bash TV thing, right? And for one, I know that they tried way too hard with that introduction to the woman that runs it or whatever. But that aside, the arena combat was extremely boring, and I don't know how it ramps up beyond that, if it gets a lot better or not. But I was thinking about it, and like, who's fucking watching this TV show? Like, do they have cable? Like, are they? Is there like a satellite beaming? Are like these bandits that you're going in and murdering? Are they on a Saturday night sitting down and watching Mutant Bash TV on their TVs? Like, what?
They pump out the results, don't they? There's actual towers that you can destroy. They actually they shout it at you.
I want to say I remember a place or two where they had it on, or somebody was like, before you came up on the group of enemy, they're like, "Oh, did you see this last week on Mutant Bash or whatever?"
Yeah, but how are they getting it? Like, there's no infrastructure for getting television to these locations. Like, there's no power lines. There's no. I don't know.
Satellite.
Just
like,
like,
we dropped these huge ass
I guess
out of orbit. Maybe
I guess maybe. I don't know. It was just like, it was one of those things that I was like, who's fucking watching this TV? Like, somebody loading it up on YouTube or something? HBO Go.
That vendor's just driving around. He's showing the episode of Mutant Bash and selling things.
Yeah, I gotta talk to him about what he's showing me in his inventory, because apparently there's a Hulu subscription that he's not is not in his list of things that I can buy.
I like that this is the thing that broke you. The fucking TV. Oh, gee.
Well, it just kind of like it was just like kind of like the thing that was like, yeah, this doesn't make sense. Like, it doesn't make sense in this world that, like, I could see it as like an arena thing where people came to and watched from around, but as a television program, it just doesn't make sense because they don't do the extra step of explaining like they don't even do like the extra little bit of like, oh, there all these people in Wellspring are gathered around the TV to watch Mutant Batch TV, so at least I can kind of connect the dots and say, oh, there must be some sort of information infrastructure that allows them to
Wasn't
what?
there?
Yeah, what?
Ryan, they're watching them on
Yeah.
the data pads.
Wasn't there a
They're
spot in
they're watching them on the
Wellspring,
data
though?
pads.
No, the data pads, all they're just text.
No,
I know
no,
because I've
but-
picked up 10 million of them.
Wait a minute, though. But in Wellspring, there's a lounge for Mutant Bash. I just don't remember if there was a TV there.
Yeah, you go in and it's like it's that.
It's next to there's that like club type place, but if you just go straight, it's just like a little hole in the wall, and there's like two tables.
there's like a booth. Yeah, it's like a booth.
Yeah, it's like
I
two
remember
booths.
that.
I just
And
don't
yeah,
remember if
there's
there was
a TV there, but
or
I
not.
still don't understand how it's getting the signal. You know what I mean? I don't know. It's just like
Here's a look into the things that keeps Ryan up at night.
right.
Yeah.
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 And then-
it's in
and then
there
you
because
have-
they were in the first. Mutant Bash was in the first game. That's why it's in there.
Oh,
The
I'm
only
sure it
reason
was
it's there.
even well explained there.
No, it's the only
no.
reason it's there.
And then you have the guy that has like basically a burnt out hubcap as a hat, but then he's wearing like a J.C. Penney shirt and Nikes.
Strong look.
It's like, what kind of fashion are we talking about here? Anyway,
Yeah.
Rage 2, it's a game.
It's a great game.
I
I think it is anyway.
There's enjoyment to be had in Rage 2. I will say that. I've despite all of this, I've put like 20 hours into it. So like I said, I found the loop, and I'm kind of predisposed to finding the loop in these kinds of games, because despite my critiques of them and wanting them to be a little bit better than they are, like these types of open world games, I still do enjoy them. Like I put 40 hours into Mad Max when it came out, and even then I was like, this isn't great, but it's fine.
Yeah.
It's a good game. It's a 7.
Yeah.
I don't know. Or is it higher for you guys?
What, this?
Yeah, Rage 2.
I couldn't score on it because kind of I can see there's some faults. I can see there's some fundamental problems.
Yeah.
And there are some bad points to it, but the good parts are there's far more of them, which is the combat, the getting out of the car and shooting people. So much of it.
Yeah.
I'm having so much fun with it that I don't. The bad parts don't really matter to me. I'm enjoying it so much, it's ridiculous. But I wouldn't call it a 9-10 out of 10. But I wouldn't drop it down too far.
So
because,
basically, what you're saying is that boiling a video game down to a single number is kind of bullshit, and
well, yeah, but it's
waste of
required
time.
because people can't get angry. People can't get angry if you don't give them a number.
right. Well, I'm giving this 7 bananas out of 5 coconuts.
I'll give it 8.5 data pads out of 10.
Oh boy.
I'm gonna.
Is
I'm
it
gonna
because you
give it
can't
too much
find the
fun.
other 1.5 data pads?
No, I smashed one. I shot it by accident.
You hit it with a baseball bat and they didn't hit it back.
Oh,
I blew it up with Flame Master or whatever
They
it's called.
didn't unlock that ability yet, so they couldn't knock it back
No.
to you.
And plus, I met Mangu the Unborn, who was brilliant. Have you met him
Is
yet?
that Is that a Game of Thrones
Is a guy
character? I don't know.
is a vendor that comes down in a big hot air balloon and he sells you a pack that helps you tilt like a cockney. So
That
you're
helps you
like,
what?
fucking have it, mate, and stuff like that.
That helps
It's
you
great.
what?
You can buy a voice pack. Like you get a guy comes down in a thing and he drops down at different points. You don't know where he's going to be, and he sells just cheats for the game.
Oh.
So you can have and you like have a voice pack cheat, and it opens up a little menu on the start screen. And you just buy so many cheats that change the game. It's ridiculous. I recommend you look for Mangu the Unborn.
Yeah, I guess so. Does it look like one of those Mutant Bash TV balloons?
It looks like kind of, yeah, with a little basket at the bottom. It looks a little bit like the thing from Baron Munchausen. And it comes down and it kind of, this big thing, and it comes down and he's Mangu the Unborn and he sells you a load of old shit.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because I've been having a lot of phantom balloons in my game, and I'm wondering if maybe this has something to do with it.
No, I got one that popped out. It really annoyed me. I was tracking it, and I went towards it because it was like hitched up on a mountain, like it was caught or something, and then it just disappeared as I got there, and it wasn't shot down by somebody else.
There was one down in this vat, because there's a lot of places in this game where, if you drive around in the Icarus, it looks like this big solid mass of land, but there are spots where you just cannot fly your thing. You fall into a cliff and you fall into a pit and you die.
Yeah.
But there was this balloon that I saw like way down below and like almost like in a pit, and I'm like, oh, could I go down there? And I went to go do it, and I died. And then when I reloaded, it wasn't there. The balloon wasn't there at all. So I was like, oh, great.
Fuck you.
So now,
so now
I'm going to deal with these phantom balloons.
Yeah, you're right. It's just lost half a data pad. There you go. I'm straight 8.
Right, yeah. Now it's...
because of the balloons.
6.5 bananas out of 5 coconuts. All right. Well, I think that's going to wrap us up unless anybody has anything they want to add about Rage 2.
I don't know. It's got some weird audio issues from time to time.
Yeah, you're having some like repeating audio or something like that, right?
Yeah, and it's usually like when you go into like an area that's kind of dungeony, and you come out, it just kind of gets like, it'll just be like this clip of sound that gets stuck, but then it'll like fade in and out, and you're not sure if it's fixing itself or not. But you have to like close the entire game and then come back in. If you just main menu and then load back into your game, it's still there.
Yeah.
Speaking
of that, I was having issues when I first started playing with characters that were talking and their subtitles were coming up, but they weren't. The audio wasn't playing. That seemed to not be as big of an issue. I don't know if they patched or something, but I was only having that the first day I was playing, as well as characters that were talking to me and their character model hadn't loaded in yet, which was really excellent. So it was like a wall was talking to me, yeah.
Yeah. I think the worst one I had was I was at the racetrack, and you can hear the cars going past because they're racing before you even go in. And I went to talk to somebody because you have to for a mission, and I came back out, and it was the tracks, I was in the middle of the track, except I wasn't, and it was at twice the volume that it was to start with, and I couldn't stop it. It was driving me insane. It just completely overcranked the sound. I don't know where it did it, but it kind of jumped from 10 to 20, and I just heard these rashing cars like I was in the middle of it. It's like, oh, God, what is this?
Yeah.
So
How did you fix that? Did you have to... Oh, so if you left, it didn't follow you?
Oh, no, it did follow me. That's what I mean. I ran away and I thought I'd get away from it, so I actually left the boundary, and I had to reset the game. It was so ridiculously loud, because everyone's overcranked anyway.
Yeah.
But that was ridiculous.
Yeah, that's kind of a bummer that you actually have to reset the game. Yeah. All the other bugs were just kind of, like I said, goofy things that didn't really break the game, but were just kind of silly, but that's kind of a pain in the ass to having to restart.
But I guess
I've had a couple of complete crashes as well. I don't know if you've had any complete crashes.
I haven't had a crash yet.
No, I haven't had a crash.
Now it's probably going to happen.
Performance on the PC version has been pretty good. It's, I've had some weird, like I was mentioning to you guys in the chat, like weird flickering things when I was driving around, like the screen would flicker, and that's still happening from time to time.
Mm.
I think the game could definitely use a couple of patches.
Yeah.
And while that will fix the bugs, that's obviously not going to address some of the
No.
shortcomings if you can't find that groove in the game. Which is why I'm seeing like I can understand some of the negative the negative press around it, because it isn't an easy game to there's a lot of caveats with the recommendation. Like, maybe you'll figure it out, maybe you'll find it incredibly boring. I don't know.
Yeah.
Something I'd like to mention here too, just so that we have it here, because like when I had talked to you guys about it, it was kind of weird, is the fact that I see one of my friends' gamer tag randomly in multiple spots. So it just hasn't been one spot. It's been about 5 or 6 times now that
that is strange.
a gamer tag shows up.
A game that has absolutely no multiplayer in it. Why would there be any code in there to pull in gamer tags into your game?
Are they online at the same time
Um,
when it happens? Have you actually checked that?
I'm not sure. I'll have to check next time I see it. But it's
like,
been the same person like every time too.
Yeah, that's what's fun. That's, I think, is even funnier. It's just this one person that keeps showing up in your game.
And it's like the full tag too. It's not even just like a small little clip. It's like the full thing's there on screen. I think I took a picture of it.
If next time it happens, see if they're like also playing Rage 2, or if they're even online. 'Cause I think, just as an aside thing, I think co-op would be pretty cool in this game. Like, if they added DLC where you could bring in a buddy and you could go screw around in that world, that would add a lot of potential fun to it.
Mm-hmm.
So maybe that is an indication that maybe there will be a DLC where that adds co-op later on in the game. Because, like I said, why else would you have, like, even be able to do that in the game? Like, why would the game even be able to load in somebody else's gamer tag? Like, there's no leaderboard, there's no online connection of any sort. Just doesn't make sense.
No. Very odd.
Yeah.
Anyway,
Hello.
I think that's going to wrap it up for Rage 2. Anything else big on the horizon that we're looking forward to? We got E3 coming up, which is going to be a big deal. We'll definitely have some, probably a cast afterward talking about whatever the heck is going to happen at this year's E3, because it should be, it's either going to be a huge dud or it's going to be a pretty eventful show. I don't know. It's either going to be one or the other. I can't see it being kind of like it's okay. It's either going to be crazy or it's going to be nothing. Just the way that things are going on right now in the industry.
Mm-hmm.
I think it would be interesting because Sony isn't there, and Nintendo aren't there, are they? So obviously they tend to do
Nintendo's
kind
there.
of Sony isn't there, but they tend to do marketing deals, don't they? So we might be seeing more from those companies actually having their own thing rather than just throwing most of their stuff into other companies' kind of presentations.
Yeah, maybe.
So it'd be interesting to see individual companies that are more.
Of course, the Ubisoft's still there. Nintendo's still going to do their Treehouse and their Direct, and Microsoft and Bethesda have their thing on Sunday. I'm expecting, obviously. So that's one thing that Rage has got me excited for, is Doom Eternal, because the gameplay. So I'm hoping we get a release date on that, because that's a big one that I'm looking forward to. And this weird partnership that Sony and Microsoft just announced with the cloud services, I don't know what that is going to entail.
No,
that was kind of a way out of left field announcement, and I don't know, like, is it just going to be like them sharing technology, or is it going to be something more than that? I don't know. and what will we see any of that information at E3? And so games coming out, anything in the next few weeks that you're looking forward to?
I'm not sure when the Sinking City's out. That's June, isn't it? Or July?
That's end of June, so that's going to be after E3, so that's at least a month away. But yeah, that's going to be something we're going to be looking into when it comes out.
I don't think there's really anything coming up. So we want to mention our next replay?
Yeah, we could talk about the replay. Almost forgot. So we're going to be doing Dragon Age Inquisition as our next Voxel replay. And yeah, so if you played that game or looked over it and decided to skip it at the time, this is a good time to go back and check it out. You can join along with us. We are tentatively aiming to get up to the point, and if you want to go a little bit past it, to the point where you get Skyhold. It's a very obvious part of the game, and it's kind of a part of the game where a lot of it kind of starts to go off in a whole bunch of different directions. So it's a good point to get a taste of what the game is, and then stop before it kind of goes off the rails. Not in a bad way, but just in a video game kind of way. So yeah, if you are interested in that, you can join us as we revisit the Inquisition. I guess I will say that, and they just announced their release date today, at the time, the day of this recording. Outer Wilds, which is a cool-looking indie space game. Go look it up. Watching the trailer will give a much better explanation to it than what I'm going to give. But it's something I've been looking forward to for a while, and that's coming out the 30th of May. That's going to be something that I'm going to be picking up right there.
Another one for mid-June for the side-scrolling fans. Bloodstained finally comes out. Bloodstained Ritual of the Night. Bloodstained Ritual of the Night, the spiritual successor to Castlevania.
Yeah.
The Igarashi game that comes out mid-June.
They rebooted that art style, didn't they, just recently?
Yeah, they completely overhauled it. It looks very nice now.
Yeah.
Very nice.
So there is a game kind of coming up that I forgot about that I'll be picking up, and that is the Marvel Ultimate Alliance 3 for the Switch.
Oh, damn. Yeah.
Oh, okay. Yeah, that got announced as an exclusive for the Switch, which is kind of interesting. Yeah, and I don't know if I'm going to, how far I'm going to get into Mario Maker, because that's coming out in mid-June as well.
Okay.
I'm Mario Maker is one of those games where I see a lot of people enjoying it, but I find it hard to myself get excited for actually playing it. It's almost like one of those things where I like watching other people play it rather than play it myself. I like watching people try to beat crazy difficult levels, and I like certain people that make crazy difficult levels, like watching their process, but actually getting in there and doing it myself, I don't necessarily get that kind of enjoyment out of it. So we'll see what they did with that Direct recently. They are adding a whole heck of a lot to that game, which was that first Mario Maker was pretty incredible piece of a tool set to allow you to build something really cool, and they are just blowing it out in all sorts of different ways with this sequel. So I'm excited for people who play it, I guess is what I'll say. It's good that it exists, even though I might not personally go out and buy it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
All right. I guess it's gonna wrap it up. Thanks, guys, for hanging out.
Thank you.
Thank you.
we'll be back later with our Dragon Age replay and anything else that comes out, anything else that comes up on the next episode. So until then, peace.
Later.
All right.
Thank you for joining us in this very special episode of Voxel Viewpoint. If you'd like to hear or see more, please consider subscribing to us on your favorite podcast app, subscribing to us on YouTube, or visiting voxelvoice.com, where all of our great content comes together in one place. Also check out the Voxel Voice Facebook group, where you can join in on the discussion with a great, like-minded community.